Angela, what do you mean you sold my house? The manila envelope hit my kitchen table with a slap that echoed through the room. I stared at it like it was a snake. Property transfer papers, legal documents with my address on them, my farmhouse. We're leaving tonight, Mom. Europe. 6 months, maybe longer. Angela stood there in her designer coat, checking her watch like I was keeping her from something important. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. And my daughter stood there, like she just told me she was going grocery shopping. Before I tell you what happened next, hit that subscribe button. Because what my daughter didn't know, I was about to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever had someone betray you so deeply that it changed everything? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let me tell you how it all started. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old. And I'm about to tell you how my daughter tried to steal everything from me. But what she didn't know was that I'd been 10 steps ahead of her the entire time. This is a story about betrayal, justice, and a race against time to save my daughter before it was too late. By the end, you'll understand why sometimes the cruelest thing you can do for someone you love is let them fall. And why I only had months, not years, to teach her the lesson that would save her life. Angela kept talking like she was discussing weekend plans, not destroying my entire life. The buyer wants the property cleared in 45 days. That gives you 6 weeks to pack. 6 weeks to pack up 43 years. 6 weeks to say goodbye to the house where I'd raised her, where her father and I had celebrated every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone of our lives together. Preston stood by the door, scrolling through his phone, not even pretending to care. My son-in-law, Preston Hartwell. The man who'd turned my daughter into someone I didn't recognize. He wore an expensive suit. I drove an expensive car, and had convinced my daughter that appearance was more important than character. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. My voice sounded small even to my own ears. Angela shrugged. Actually shrugged. Like I'd asked her about the weather. There's a senior living facility in town, Shady Pines. They have rooms for $600 a month. Your Social Security should cover it. $600 a month. 1 room, shared bathrooms, shared dining hall. After 43 years in a 4-bedroom farmhouse on 10 acres of land. After a lifetime of independence and privacy and the freedom to walk outside and feel the sun on my face whenever I wanted. What about the money from the sale? My voice is shaking now. You can't just take everything. Angela's laugh was sharp. It cut through me like a knife. Mom, that money is funding our future. Preston's launching a consulting firm in Berlin. This is our chance at a real life. A better life. A real life. A better life. Without me. As if the life we'd had wasn't real. As if I wasn't real. And the car, I whispered. We'll leave you $2,000 from that sale, for moving expenses. She said it like she was being generous. Like she was doing me a favor. Like $2,000 made up for taking away my mobility, my independence, my ability to get to the grocery store, or the doctor, or anywhere else I needed to go. I stared at her. This woman who looked like my daughter, but sounded like a stranger. Where was the girl who used to pick wildflowers for me? Who used to sit on the porch with me and watch the sunset? Who used to tell me everything about her day, her dreams, her fears? I should have seen this coming. Ever since she married Preston 3 years ago, Angela had changed. The sweet girl who used to help me tend the garden, who used to bring me flowers every Sunday, who used to call me just to talk, she disappeared. Slowly at first, then all at once. In her place was this calculating stranger who measured people by their bank accounts and their addresses. Preston had that effect on people. He had old money manners with new money desperation. He talked about investments and opportunities and partnerships while working jobs that never quite materialized into the success he promised. But he dressed well. He spoke confidently. He knew all the right people and said all the right things. And somehow, he'd convinced my daughter that she deserved more than the life she had. More than this farmhouse, more than this town, more than me. I remembered the day she'd asked me to sign that power of attorney. It was last November. I'd fallen and broken my wrist. Nothing serious, but I was in pain and frustrated that I couldn't do simple things like open jars or button my shirts. Angela had been so concerned, so caring. She'd driven all the way from the city to help me. "Just in case, Mom," she'd said, putting the papers in front of me. "Just so I can help you if something happens. It's just a safety measure. I promise. You know how much I worry about you living out here all alone." She'd looked so sincere. "I'm so worried." So much like the daughter I'd raised. I'd trusted her. I signed without reading all the fine print, without understanding what I was really giving her. Now I understand. It had been planned all along. The concern, the care, the frequent visits that had stopped as soon as I'd signed. It had all been an act, a performance, a way to get what she wanted. As I watched Angela and Preston load their designer luggage into his Range Rover, I thought about Robert, my husband, Angela's father. Robert died 2 years ago. Heart attack at 69. Suddenly. Devastating. One moment he was working in the barn fixing a fence post like he'd done 1,000 times before. The next moment, he was on the ground clutching his chest. By the time I got to him, by the time I called the ambulance, by the time they arrived, he was gone. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to tell him I loved him one more time. I didn't get to hold his hand as he left this world. But what killed me even more than losing him was watching Angela at his funeral. She stayed for the service, sitting in the front pew with dry eyes and a blank expression. Then she left immediately afterward. "Work emergency," she'd said, barely looking at me, barely touching my hand. She didn't cry. She didn't stay to receive condolences from the neighbors who'd known her since she was born. She didn't stay to share memories of her father. She just left. I stood there in my black dress, surrounded by people who'd loved Robert, people who'd brought casseroles and flowers and kind words. And my own daughter couldn't be bothered to stay. Even then, I saw the change in her. Even then, I knew something fundamental had shifted. What Angela didn't know, what no one knew, except Robert's attorney, Beckett Gatsby, about what Robert had been building for 30 years. My husband wasn't just a farmer. He was a strategic investor who bought properties when they were worthless and watched them appreciate into gold. He started in the 80s. He bought apartment buildings in what everyone called bad neighborhoods, places people were fleeing from, places where property values had bottomed out. 10 years later, those neighborhoods became downtown revitalizations. Coffee shops and art galleries and young professionals moving in. The buildings Robert bought for pennies were suddenly worth fortunes. He bought commercial properties before shopping centers existed, empty lots that everyone else ignored. He'd drive around with maps and zoning documents, studying where the city planned to expand, where highways would be built, where development would boom. He bought land before highways were planned, farmland that seemed worthless. And then the interstate came through, and suddenly that land was worth millions. He studied zoning maps the way other men studied sports scores. He read city council meeting minutes, he attended planning commission hearings, he did his homework. Robert played the long game, and he never told anyone. Not our neighbors who thought we were just simple farmers. Not our friends who invited us to potlucks and assumed we were living paycheck to paycheck like everyone else. Not even me. Not until 3 days before he died. I'd been sitting by his hospital bed after the heart attack. The doctor said he had maybe a week. He knew it too. I could see it in his eyes. He knew he was dying. "Tony," he'd whispered, his hand trembling mine. "I need to tell you something. We're not who everyone thinks we are." I'd thought he was delirious from the medication. I'd thought the painkillers were making him confused. But then he told me everything. He'd built an empire. 23 properties across 3 states, investment portfolios worth millions, office buildings in downtown districts, apartment complexes that generated passive income every month, commercial real estate that had appreciated beyond anyone's wildest dreams. And the building where Angela lived in her precious downtown loft? The place she was so proud of? The place she'd shown off in photos and bragged about to her friends? Robert owned it, the entire 6-story building. She'd been paying rent to her own father and didn't even know it. Total assets, $43 million. I nearly fainted when he told me, 43 million. I'd repeated the number out loud just to make sure I'd heard him right. We'd been living on a farm, driving old cars, shopping at discount stores, clipping coupons from the Sunday paper. And the whole time, we were millionaires. Multimillionaires. Why didn't you tell me? I'd asked him, my voice barely a whisper. Because I needed to know we were happy without it, he'd said, squeezing my hand with what little strength he had left. I needed to know that you loved me for me, not for what I could give you. And we were, weren't we? We were happy. We were. We'd been so happy. Our life had been simple but full. We worked hard. We laughed together. We'd built something real. Before he died, Robert put everything in my name. Every deed, every account, every investment. Every single asset he'd accumulated over 30 years of careful planning and strategic investing. And he left one instruction with Beckett Gatsby, his attorney. An instruction that Beckett had written down and saved in a sealed envelope that he'd given to me at the reading of the will. Don't tell Angela until she proves she deserves it. She needs to understand that money without character is worthless. Now, watching Angela drive away without even a hug goodbye, without asking if I'd be okay, without a single tear or moment of hesitation, without even a backward glance at the home where she'd grown up, I understood exactly what Robert meant. He'd seen it before I had. He'd seen the change in her. The way she'd started measuring success by material things. The way she'd started looking down on people who worked ordinary jobs. The way she'd started caring more about appearances than substance. He'd known she wasn't ready. But there was something else. Something I hadn't told anyone, not even Beckett. 6 months after Robert died, I got my own diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor had given me 18 months. Maybe 2 years if I was lucky and the treatment worked. That was 18 months ago. The treatment hadn't worked. The chemo had made me sick but hadn't stopped the cancer. It had spread to my liver, my bones, my lymph nodes. The doctor said there was nothing more they could do except make me comfortable. I didn't have years to wait for Angela to grow up. I didn't have time for gentle lessons or slow transformations. I had months, maybe 6, maybe less. This wasn't just about teaching her a lesson anymore. This was about saving her soul before I ran out of time. Because I'd already lost my husband. I was losing my health, my time, my life. Everything was slipping away. I couldn't leave this earth knowing my daughter was the cruel, entitled woman who sold her dying mother's home for a European vacation. I couldn't die, knowing that Robert's hard work, his careful planning, his legacy, would go to someone who didn't understand its value. I needed her to change, and I needed it to happen fast. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what happened next. Because what Angela did to me? That was just the beginning. What did I do to her? That's the story you won't believe. And the clock was ticking, faster than she knew. The morning after Angela left, I sat in my kitchen staring at the empty driveway. The tire tracks from Preston's Range Rover were still visible in the gravel. I should have felt devastated. I should have felt helpless. Instead, I picked up the phone and called Beckett Gatsby. Beckett, Angela's selling the farmhouse, $300,000, closes in 30 days. There was silence on the other end of the line. A long, heavy silence. Then his voice came through, sharp and concerned. Antonia, that property's worth $3 million. Minimum. $3 million. We can stop this. Contest the power of attorney. She's clearly acting in bad faith. Any judge would. No, I said, cutting him off. Let it go through. I'm sorry, what? I want to see how far she'll go. Let the sale complete. But I need you to do something. Find out who the buyer is, and make them an offer they can't refuse. Beckett understood immediately. He was a smart man. That's why Robert had trusted him for 30 years. You want to buy it back through one of Robert's LLCs. Exactly. Offer them $400,000. Quick close. Cash. They make $100,000 profit for doing absolutely nothing. What buyer wouldn't jump at that? And Angela never knows. Angela never knows. Beckett paused. I could hear him breathing on the other end, could almost hear him thinking. Antonia, are you sure about this? Given your situation, shouldn't we be focusing on? My situation is exactly why we're doing this, Beckett. My voice was firm, firmer than I felt. I don't have time for gentle lessons. She needs to hit bottom fast, and I need to see if she can climb back up before. I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. He understood. I'll handle it. And Antonia, start preparing the inheritance documents. All of them. Including the tax assessment. We need to know exactly what she'll be walking into when the time comes. When the time comes. Not if, when. Thank you, Beckett. Antonia, he said, his voice softer now. Robert would be proud of you. What you're doing, it's not easy. But it's right. I hung up before I could cry. 3 weeks later, the sale went through. The buyer was a young couple from California. Starry-eyed, first-time investors who thought they'd found a diamond in the rough. They were thrilled to flip the property immediately for a $100,000 profit. Easy money for them. They probably told everyone they knew about their brilliant real estate deal. The farmhouse transferred to Piedmont Properties LLC, one of Robert's companies, one of my companies now. My home was secure. Angela just didn't know it yet. Meanwhile, I moved into Shady Pines. Room 14B, 12 feet by 12 feet, one window that overlooked the parking lot. I could see the dumpsters from my bed, could smell the garbage on hot days when the wind blew wrong. The room had beige walls, a single bed with a thin mattress, a small dresser with 3 drawers, a chair that wobbled, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. This was my home now. I took a job at Patterson's hardware store. 20 hours a week. Minimum wage, $8.50 an hour. I'd gone from owning $43 million in assets to making $8.50 an hour. My manager, Derek Palmer, was concerned when I applied. He was a good kid, maybe 30 years old, with kind eyes and a conscience that made him uncomfortable hiring a 71-year-old woman. Miss Brooks, are you sure? This work is physically demanding. At your age, standing for long shifts lifting boxes? I need to stay busy, I told him. Which was true. The alternative was sitting in that tiny room thinking about the cancer growing inside me, thinking about how many days I had left, counting down my remaining breaths like a death row inmate counting down to execution. The chemo had stopped working 3 months ago. The doctor suggested hospice. Comfort care, they called it. A nice way of saying they'd given up, that there was nothing left to do except manage my pain until I died. I refused. I had work to do. I had a daughter to save. Every week, postcards arrived at Shady Pines. Glossy images of European cities with Angela's handwriting on the back. The handwriting I'd taught her when she was 5 years old, holding her hand as we practiced letters together. Paris is amazing. Had dinner at a Michelin star restaurant. Preston's meetings are going so well. Rome is beautiful. Bought the most gorgeous shoes. You'd love it here, Mom. You'd love it here, Mom. But she never once asked if I was okay. Never asked how I was managing in my new tiny room. Never asked if I was healthy or safe or had enough to eat. Never asked if I was lonely or scared or needed anything. Not once. Her social media told the same story. I'd check it sometimes on the computer in the Shady Pines common room. Luxury hotels with marble lobbies and crystal chandeliers. Expensive restaurants with waiters in bow ties and menus I couldn't read. Designer shopping bags from stores I couldn't even pronounce. Yacht parties in Monaco with champagne and beautiful people in clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. My co-workers at the hardware store would see the posts. Some of them were friends with her on social media. They'd show me their phones with sad eyes. "Is that your daughter?" They'd ask, their voices confused and sad for me. "Yes," I'd smile. "She's following her dreams." What else could I say? That my daughter had abandoned me? That she'd stolen my home and left me in a senior facility while she partied across Europe? That would only make them pity me more. What I didn't tell them was that I was watching every single transaction. Beckett had helped me gain access to the joint account Angela shared with Preston. It was an account Robert had originally set up for them as a wedding gift. $5,000 to help them start their life together. They'd forgotten I was listed as a backup on it. One of those small administrative details people forget about. I watched the money vanish like water through a sieve. $320,000 from the farmhouse and car sales, $15,000 in Paris, first week, hotels, restaurants, shopping, $1,000 on a single dinner. $23,000 in Rome. More hotels and business dinners that looked more like parties from the photos Angela posted. Preston in expensive suits, drinking wine that probably cost more per bottle than I made in a week. $18,000 in Barcelona. Designer clothes and casino nights. Angela posted a photo of herself in a dress that cost $4,000. $4,000 for a dress she'd wear once. By month 2, they were down to $200,000. By month 4, they had $60,000 left. Preston's consulting firm seemed to consist entirely of expensive restaurants and private clubs where he networked, which apparently meant drinking expensive wine and pretending to be important. I never saw any actual business, no clients, no contracts, no revenue, just expenses. Meanwhile, my body was failing. The pain was getting worse every day. I'd lost 15 pounds, then 20. My clothes hung off me like I was a scarecrow. My face was gaunt. My skin had taken on a grayish tint. My coworkers noticed but said nothing. They were kind that way. They'd bring me extra snacks. They'd offer to help me lift heavy boxes. They'd let me sit down when I needed to. I had maybe 4 months left. Angela had been gone for 4 months already. I needed her to fall faster. I needed her to hit bottom before I ran out of time. 4.5 months into their trip, my phone rang at 2 a.m. The sound jolted me awake. No one calls at 2 a.m. with good news. Mom? Angela's voice was small, shaking. Nothing like the confident woman who'd sold my house. Nothing like the woman in the social media photos with champagne and smiles. I sat up in my narrow bed at Shady Pines, fighting the wave of nausea that hit me every night now. Angela, it's 2 a.m. I know, I'm sorry, She was crying. Really crying. Not pretty crying. Not dignified crying. The kind of crying that comes from the soul. Mom. Something's happened. Despite everything, despite the cancer, despite the betrayal, despite the pain that lived in my bones now, my heart clenched. She was still my daughter, still my baby girl. What's wrong? It's Preston. Mom, he's gone, he left me. Her voice broke completely. He met some woman at a casino in Monte Carlo. Valentina Kessler. She's 25 and her father is some tech investor. Preston took what was left of our money and he's gone to her family's estate in Switzerland. He just left. He took everything and he left. Silence stretched between us across the ocean. I pressed my hand against my side where the pain was worst. Mom? Are you there? I'm here. Barely. I pressed my hand against my side where the pain lived, where the cancer was eating through me piece by piece. I'm in Prague. I'm in this cheap hotel because I can't afford the nice one anymore. The room smells like cigarettes and the shower barely works. Mom, I have $8,000 left. That's it. $8,000. The rent on our loft is 3 months overdue. They're going to evict me. They're putting my stuff in storage. I need help. I need plane money. I need every instinct I had screamed at me to help her. To wire money, to save my baby girl, to be the mother who rescued her child. To do what mothers are supposed to do. But I heard Robert's voice from his hospital bed, clear as if he were sitting next to me. Don't give her access until she deserves it. Until she understands. And I heard my doctor's voice. 6 months. Maybe less. I didn't have time to save her gently. I didn't have time for slow lessons and gradual growth. I needed her to break. I needed her to rebuild. And I needed it to happen now. Angela, I said slowly, do you remember what you told me about the bus stop 2 miles down the road? What, Mom, I don't. You told me I still had my legs, that I could manage, that I'd be fine because I could walk to the bus stop. Well, sweetheart, you're 42 years old, healthy, educated. You have your legs too. Mom, please, I'm begging. Figure it out, Angela. The way I had to figure out how to survive after you sold my home, after you took everything from me and left me with nothing. I hung up. My hands shook. I cried for an hour, sobbing into my pillow so the other residents wouldn't hear. The thin walls at Shady Pines carried sound. I didn't want anyone to hear me breaking. Then I vomited from the pain, from the cancer, from the heartbreak of what I'd just done. But I didn't call her back. I couldn't. I didn't have enough time left to let her take the easy way out. I didn't have enough time to rescue her and then wait for her to learn. It had to be this way. Hard, fast, brutal. I know what you're thinking. What kind of mother abandons her child like that? What kind of mother hears her daughter crying and desperate in a foreign country and hangs up the phone? But here's what you don't understand yet. Here's what makes this whole story make sense. I wasn't abandoning Angela. I was racing death itself to save her soul. Because I'd already lost my husband. I was losing my health, my time, my life. Everything was slipping away like sand through my fingers. I couldn't leave this earth knowing my daughter was the cruel, entitled woman who sold her dying mother's home for a European vacation. I couldn't die knowing that all of Robert's hard work, all of his careful planning, all of his sacrifices would go to someone who didn't deserve it. Someone who would waste it. Someone who would become more cruel and more entitled with every dollar. I needed her to transform, and I needed it to happen fast. The next 8 months would break her completely. But they would also rebuild her into someone I could recognize again. Someone who deserved to know the truth about her father's legacy. Someone I could leave behind without regret. Someone I could be proud of. Angela made it home 7 weeks later. 7 weeks of struggle. 7 weeks of humiliation. 7 weeks of learning what the real world was like. She sold her jewelry, piece by piece. The diamond earrings Preston had given her, the gold bracelet from her birthday, the pearl necklace from our last Christmas together. Everything went to pawn shops that gave her pennies on the dollar. She worked at a hostel in Prague for a month, cleaning rooms and changing sheets and scrubbing toilets to save money for a budget flight. She shared a room with 5 other workers. She ate cheap bread and cheese. She learned what it meant to work for every dollar. She arrived at the airport with 1 suitcase and nowhere to go. 1 suitcase out of all the designer luggage she'd packed for Europe. She'd sold the rest. The loft? Evicted. The property management company had removed her belongings and put them in storage. She'd have to pay a fortune to get them back. She didn't know that I owned that building. That she'd been evicting herself from her own family's property. That irony wasn't lost on me. She called me from the airport. Her voice was different now, smaller, humbler. Mom, I'm back. I'm home. I have nowhere to go. Can I please stay with you, just until I figure things out? Angela, I live in a 12 by 12 room at Shady Pines. There's a single bed, a shared bathroom down the hall. There's no room for you. Then what am I supposed to do? Her voice cracked. I heard real fear there, real desperation. The privilege was gone. The entitlement was gone. She was just scared. The same thing I did when you left me with nothing, I said quietly. Figure it out. She slept in her car. Preston's Range Rover that she'd somehow gotten him to sign over before he left. Probably the only smart thing she'd done in months. She slept in parking lots, in rest stops. She was terrified someone would rob her or worse. She sold it 3 days later for $15,000. Probably got cheated on the price, but she needed the money, needed a roof over her head. She found a room for rent. $450 a month. Someone's converted garage with no kitchen, no bathroom inside, just a hot plate and a mini fridge and a space heater that barely worked. No air conditioning, no heat, just 4 walls and a door that locked. She got a job at Sparkle Clean, a cleaning company. $10 an hour. They assigned her to commercial buildings, offices, gyms, the mall, the kinds of places she used to shop at without thinking about who cleaned them, including Patterson's hardware store. Her supervisor was Helen Nico, a no-nonsense woman who'd been managing cleaning crews for 20 years. Helen didn't coddle anyone, but she was fair. She gave Angela the hardest jobs, the bathrooms nobody else wanted to clean. The ones with graffiti and clogged toilets and mysterious stains. She wanted to see if this soft-looking woman from the city could handle real work. I saw Angela on her third day. She was cleaning the bathroom in her uniform. Her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. She'd lost 20 pounds, maybe more. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by thrift store jeans and t-shirts that didn't quite fit. She looked tired, defeated, broken. She didn't see me standing in the doorway. But I saw her look at herself in the mirror. I saw her eyes fill with tears. I saw her face crumple. I saw her take a deep breath, wipe her face with the back of her gloved hand, and keep scrubbing. Keep working. Keep going. That's when I saw the first spark of who she used to be. The girl who didn't give up. The girl who persevered. I watched from the doorway, leaning against the frame because standing upright was getting harder every day. The cancer was in my bones now. Every movement hurt. Every breath was a battle. Some days I could barely get out of bed, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. She wasn't ready yet. 2 weeks later, she was cleaning the break room. This time she saw me. "Mom?" She froze, holding a trash bag. Her face went pale. "Angela. I work here now. Cleaning." Like I couldn't see her uniform, her rubber gloves, the spray bottle in her hand, the trash bag she was holding. "I can see that." She studied my face, really looked at me for the first time in months. Her eyes widened. "Mom, are you okay? You look thin. Really thin." The first time she'd really looked at me. First time she'd asked about my well-being since she'd gotten on that plane to Europe, since she'd sold my house and taken everything. "I'm managing," I said. Which was a lie. I was dying. But she didn't need to know that yet. "Are you eating enough? The hardware store doesn't pay much. I know what they pay. Are you getting enough food? Do you need—" She stopped herself, because she didn't have anything to give. She couldn't help even if she wanted to. "I'm fine, Angela. Are you?" "I'm learning to be," she whispered. I left without another word, leaning heavily on my car in the parking lot before I could drive home. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My vision was blurry from pain and tears. 3 months left. Maybe 4, if I was lucky and stubborn. She was changing. I could see it. But was it fast enough? Was I going to live long enough to see her become the person she needed to be? If you're wondering what happened next, make sure you're subscribed. Because what came next would test both of us in ways I never imagined. And let me ask you, if you only had months to live, would you spend them teaching someone a hard lesson? Or would you take the easy road and just give them everything? Tell me in the comments. 2 months after Angela returned, 6 months into my timeline, 6 months closer to the end, I invited her to lunch. My treat. The diner downtown. Betty's Place. Nothing fancy, just burgers and coffee and pie that was better than it had any right to be. She arrived 10 minutes early, nervous, standing outside the glass door and peeking in like she wasn't sure she should enter. "Mom, you wanted to see me? Sit down, Angela. Let's talk." She slid into the booth across from me, and then she really looked at me. Her eyes went wide. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Mom, you've lost more weight. Are you sure you're okay?" I'd lost another 10 pounds since she'd last seen me. My clothes didn't just hang, they draped. My cheekbones were sharp. My eyes were sunken. I looked like what I was, a woman dying. "We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you." We ordered coffee and sandwiches. She tried to pay for hers with crumpled bills from her pocket, money she'd earned scrubbing toilets. I waved her off. We ate in silence for a while, the sound of other diners filling the space between us. The clink of silverware, the murmur of conversations, the hiss of the grill. Normal life happened around us while we sat in our bubble of complicated history. Then she said the words I'd been waiting months to hear. "I'm sorry." Tears rolled down her cheeks, dropping onto her untouched sandwich. "Mom, I'm so sorry for selling your house, for abandoning you, for being so cruel. I was." She shook her head. "I was a terrible person. I don't even recognize who I was." I'd imagined this moment 100 times, in my narrow bed at Shady Pines. At my register at the hardware store, in the doctor's office getting bad news after bad news. But hearing it, actually hearing those words from her mouth, it hit me harder than I expected. "What changed?" I asked. My voice was steady, even though my hands were shaking. Everything. Losing Preston showed me he was never my partner. He was using me. He saw dollar signs when he looked at me. A meal ticket. But I was using you too. Using your home, your car, your trust. I took everything and gave nothing back. I treated you like an ATM, not like a person. Not like my mother. Why did you do it? She wiped her eyes with a paper napkin, leaving mascara smudges on the cheap paper. Because Preston made me believe we deserved more. That we were special. That we were better than other people. That working hard was for other people, for people who weren't smart enough or ambitious enough to take shortcuts. And I wanted to believe it so badly that I ignored every warning sign. From you. From Dad before he died. I ignored all of it. And now? Now I clean toilets for $10 an hour, and I'm grateful to have the job. Now I understand what you tried to teach me my whole life. That character matters more than comfort. That's how you treat people, especially people who can't do anything for you. That's who you really are. The woman who cleans your bathroom is just as valuable as the woman who signs your paycheck. Maybe more valuable because at least she's honest about what she does. I studied her face. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't an act. This was genuine remorse. I could see it in her eyes, hear it in her voice, feel it in a way she couldn't quite meet my gaze. But I needed to be absolutely sure. Because I was running out of time to test her. Because once I told her the truth, once I revealed what her father had built, there would be no more tests, no more chances to see who she really was. Angela, I said carefully, if you had money again, real money, would you go back to who you were? She thought about that, really thought. She didn't answer right away. She stared at her coffee like it held answers. A year ago, I would have said no and been lying. I would have told you what you wanted to hear. Now, I hope not. I really hope not. I hope I'll remember what it feels like to struggle, to be invisible, to be treated like you doesn't matter because you're wearing a cleaning uniform instead of designer clothes, to have people look through you like you're not even there. I hope so too, I said quietly, because in a few months, maybe less, she was going to have more money than she'd ever dreamed of. And I wouldn't be here to see if she handled it right. Over the next months, I quietly helped Angela. Small things she didn't know came from me. Little acts of grace she thought were luck or kindness from strangers. I paid her landlord directly to reduce her rent by $50. I told him to say the previous tenant had a deposit that covered it. He was a good man, Mr. Chen. He didn't ask questions. I bought gift cards at the grocery store and randomly gave them away at the hardware store. I made sure Angela got one. She tried to refuse it at first. Someone else needs this more than me, she'd said. But Derek insisted. Just take it, Angela. Let someone help you for once. I watched her use that gift card to buy essentials, not luxuries. Eggs, bread, vegetables, rice, beans, nothing wasted. No treats, no convenience foods, no ice cream or chips or anything fun, just the basics. She was living like I'd lived when Robert and I were first married, before the properties, before the investments. Living on nothing and making it work. She took a second job, waitressing at Ruby's Diner on weekends. 50 hours a week total between both jobs. I'd see her walking between them sometimes, exhausted. Her shoulders hunched, her feet dragging. She'd walk because she couldn't afford gas. Walk in the rain, walk in the heat. Just walk and walk and walk. I watched her transform in ways I hadn't expected. She thanked people genuinely. She looked servers in the eye when they took her order, asked their names, remembered them. She tipped generously when she could, even just an extra $1 or $2. Money she could barely spare. She started volunteering at Shady Pines on her day off, her only day off. Instead of resting, instead of sleeping, she came to the facility where she thought her mother had abandoned her dignity, and she read to residents. She played cards. She just listened to their stories. These people had nothing to offer her. No connections, no advantages, no money. Most of them had been forgotten by their own families. But she showed up anyway. One day, I saw her helping Martha Henderson, one of the residents, write a letter to her grandson. Martha's hands shook too much to write anymore. Angela's hands were gentle, patient, kind. She read the letter back to Martha 3 times until it was perfect. Until every word said exactly what Martha wanted to say. "You're a good girl," Martha told her. "Your mother must be so proud." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "I don't think she is. I don't think she'll ever be proud of me again." I'd been standing in the hallway, out of sight. I had to leave before I started crying too. This was my daughter. The real one. Finally visible again. But my body is failing faster now. The pain was constant, unrelenting. A fire in my bones that never went out. I'd stopped at the hardware store. I'd called Derek one morning, my voice shaking. "I need to retire," I'd told him. He'd been so kind. "Of course, Miss Brooks, you've been a great employee, best of luck." He hugged me goodbye when I came in for my last shift. I nearly collapsed from the pain, from the weight of everything. I had maybe 8 weeks left. 10 if I was stubborn. And I was very, very stubborn. Angela needed to know the truth, soon. But first, one more test, one final test to make absolutely sure. 8 months after Angela returned, 2 months before the doctors said I'd die, something happened that told me everything I needed to know. Derek called me at home. "Antonia, I'm so sorry to bother you after your retirement, but we have a problem. Money's missing from the register. $230 over 3 nights. The cleaning crew worked those nights." My heart sank like a stone. Angela's crew. "I have to check everyone," Derek said apologetically. "Company policy, the owner's insisting. Would you mind coming in? Angela keeps asking about you, and I thought maybe you could be here when we tell the crew? For moral support?" I drove to the store. Every bump in the road sent fire through my spine. Every turn made me want to scream. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. They checked everyone. Emptied pockets, searched for bags. Went through lockers. They found the money in Galen Thompson's backpack. Galen, the sweet 20-year-old stock boy who'd been there 2 years, who always had a smile, who helped customers find things even when he was on break. He broke down crying when they found it. "My mom needs surgery," he sobbed. "We don't have insurance. I was gonna pay it back. I swear I was gonna pay it back. I just needed to borrow it for a few days." Derek had no choice. Company policy was clear. "I'm sorry, Galen. I have to let you go. I have to call the police." They escorted him out. He was still crying, still apologizing. But after Galen was fired and escorted out, Angela found me in the parking lot. I was leaning against my car, trying not to vomit from the pain. The world was spinning, my vision was blurry. "Mom, are you okay?" She rushed over. "You're so pale. Here, let me help you." "I'm fine," I lied. A terrible lie, an obvious lie. "Mom, you're not fine. You're sick, aren't you?" Her eyes filled with tears. "How long have you been sick? Why didn't you tell me?" "Angela, please don't lie to me. Not anymore, I can see it. You've lost so much weight, you can barely stand. Your skin is gray. Mom, what's wrong? What's happening to you?" I looked at my daughter. Really looked. And I saw someone who was ready to hear the truth. But first I needed to know something. One last thing. "Angela, I need to know something about Galen. About the money." She wiped her eyes. "I saw him take it 2 nights ago. I was cleaning the office and I saw him through the window, taking cash from the register. He didn't know I was there. And I reported it to Derek the next morning. I told him to check the security cameras. I told him which nights to look at." She looked down at her shoes. "Helen, Nico, and everyone at Sparkle Clean hates me now for snitching. They said I should have kept my mouth shut. That snitches get stitches. That I betrayed one of our own. But Mom, I couldn't stay quiet. A year ago I would have. A year ago I would have thought it wasn't my problem. But I couldn't this time. Even if it cost me my job, even if everyone hates me, I had to do what was right. Even though Galen's mother needs surgery? Even though. Because wrong is wrong, no matter how good the excuse is, and I know what it's like to justify bad behavior now. I know what it's like to tell yourself that the ends justify the means. I did that when I sold your house. I told myself we deserved that money more than you needed your home. I was wrong. And Galen was wrong too. That's when I knew she was ready. And thank God, because I was almost out of time. Angela, I need you to take tomorrow off work. Both jobs. Tell them it's a family emergency. Mom, what's going on? Are you, tomorrow, 3 p.m., Stone Ridge Coffee? It's important. She looked terrified. You're dying, aren't you? I didn't answer. I just got in my car and drove away, tears streaming down my face. The next day, Angela arrived at the coffee shop early. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying all night, I could tell. I'd brought Beckett Gatsby with me, and a briefcase full of documents. The weight of our family's entire history in manila folders and legal papers. Mom, who's this? Angela asked, looking between us with frightened eyes. This is Beckett Gatsby, your father's attorney. Sit down, Angela. There's something you need to know about your father, about me, about everything you thought you knew about our family. I slid a manila envelope across the table. The same kind she'd used to show me the farmhouse sale papers all those months ago. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. What's this? Open it. Her hands shook as she pulled out the documents. Property deeds, bank statements, investment portfolios, page after page after page. Her eyes widened as she read. Her mouth fell open. Mom, I don't understand. What is all this? That's your inheritance, Angela. Your father spent 30 years building a real estate empire. 23 properties, investment accounts, assets worth approximately $43 million. All the color drained from her face. She looked like she might faint. 43 million? The loft building you lived in? Your father owned it. I still own it. You were paying rent to your own family's company and you never knew. I don't. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't Dad tell me? Why didn't you? Because he knew you weren't ready. 3 days before he died, he made me promise something. He said, don't give Angela access to this money until she deserves it. Until she understands that money without character destroys people. I kept that promise. So when I sold the farmhouse, I bought it back 3 weeks later, through one of your father's LLCs. It's been sitting there, empty, waiting for you to be ready to come home. She couldn't speak. She just stared at the papers in her hands, at the numbers that didn't make sense, at the empire she'd never known existed. You asked me yesterday how long I've been sick, I said quietly. The answer is 6 months after your father died. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave me 18 months. That was 2 years ago. Her face crumbled. No, Mom, you can't. I'm dying, Angela. I have maybe 2 months left, maybe less. She sobbed, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me help you? Why did you waste your last year working at a hardware store and living in that terrible room when you had millions? Because I didn't need the money, sweetheart. I needed you. The real you. And I didn't have years to wait for you to grow up. I had months. So I let you sell my house. I let you abandon me. I let you hit rock bottom because that was the only way to see if my daughter was still in there somewhere. The daughter your father and I raised. The daughter who knew right from wrong. The daughter who cared about more than money and status and what other people thought. And she is. You're here. You're real. You're the person your father and I always believed you could be. If you want to know what happened next, you need to subscribe right now. Because what comes next will change everything. And let me ask you this. If someone gave you $43 million right now, would it change who you are? Or would you stay the same person? Think about it. Then tell me in the comment below. Beckett Gatsby interrupted gently. We need to discuss the other matter. I nodded. Angela, there's more. And this is where things get complicated. Beckett pulled out another folder from his briefcase. When your father died, the estate was structured in a way that delayed certain tax obligations. But now, with the full transfer of assets to you, there's an inheritance tax bill coming due. Angela looked confused. How much? Approximately $15 million. Due in 6 months. Her eyes went wide. 15 million? If we can't pay it, I said quietly, we'll have to sell properties. Probably half of what your father built. We'll lose the legacy he spent 30 years creating. But we have 43 million. We can pay for it. Not without liquidating investments at a terrible time, Beckett explained. The market is down. We'd lose millions selling now, or we need to restructure, refinance some properties, take out strategic loans, create a payment plan with the IRS. It's complicated and it's risky. Angela looked at me. Why are you telling me this? Because this is your inheritance, Angela. And this is your decision. We can sell fast and lose half of everything, or we can fight to save it. But fighting means work, real work, financial strategy, negotiations, risk. What do you think I should do? I smiled sadly. A year ago I would have told you to sell, take the easy 25 million and walk away. But now I think you're strong enough to fight for it. She looked at the documents spread across the table, then at Beckett, then at me. Tell me what needs to happen to save Dad's legacy, all of it. It'll take months of work, Beckett warned. Restructuring loans, negotiating with the IRS, managing properties you don't understand yet. It's not guaranteed to work. I don't care. Dad spent 30 years building this. I'm not going to lose half of it because I'm lazy or scared. Tell me what to do. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. That's my girl. For the next 20 minutes, Beckett outlined the plan. Angela took notes. She asked smart questions. I watched her transform from overwhelmed to determined. This was the daughter Robert and I had raised. Before Preston, before the entitlement, she was back. And just in time. After Beckett left, Angela and I sat in silence. Mom, how much time do you really have? The doctors say 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 10 if I'm stubborn. Which I am. Then we're not wasting any of it. She stood up. Come on, we're going home. Angela, I live at Shady Pines. No, we're going home. To the farmhouse. It's yours. You bought it back. And I'm moving back in with you. I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You spent your last year on Earth teaching me how to be a decent human being. The least I can do is spend your last weeks showing you I learned the lesson. We drove to the farmhouse. She'd already called a moving company. Within days, she'd moved both of us back in. She took the guest room downstairs. She set up a hospital bed in my room upstairs. She hired a home nurse to help with my care. And she kept both her jobs. Angela, you don't need to clean toilets anymore. You're wealthy. I need to finish what I started, Mom. I need to show myself I'm not that person anymore. Give me another month. Then I'll transition to working with Beckett full-time on the estate. Every morning, she'd help me get dressed. She made me breakfast. Then she went to work. She came home during lunch to check on me. She worked her evening shift. She came home and sat with me until I fell asleep. We talked. Really talked. For the first time in years. Do you forgive me, Mom, for selling your house? For abandoning you when you were sick? I forgave you the moment you did it, sweetheart, because I knew the real you was still in there. She was just lost for a while. How did you know I'd come back? Your father told me, 3 days before he died. He said, Tony, Angela has my stubbornness and your heart. She'll lose her way, but she's too much like us to stay lost forever. I miss him so much. So do I. But Angela, he'd be so proud of you right now. Not because of the money, but because of who you became when you had nothing. Over the next weeks, Angela proved herself. She worked with Beckett to restructure the debt. She negotiated with banks. She studied real estate markets. She learned everything about her father's properties. She found creative solutions. She refinanced 3 properties at better rates. She negotiated a payment plan with the IRS. She sold 1 property at peak value to raise immediate capital. Within 5 weeks, she'd saved the estate, all of it, without losing a single property that mattered. Mom, we did it. She burst into my room with the final papers. Beckett says we're clear. The tax bill is handled. We kept everything. I was in bed, too weak to get up most days now. But I smiled. You did it, sweetheart. You saved your father's legacy. Our legacy, yours and Dad's, and now mine. She climbed into bed next to me, careful of the tubes and wires. What happens to it now? After you? After I die, it's yours. All of it. To manage, to grow, to use wisely. I squeezed her hand. But Angela, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't forget who you are now. When you have all that money, when things get easy again, don't forget what you learned this year. Don't forget the people who helped you when you had nothing. Don't forget what it feels like to be invisible. I won't, I promise. And one more thing. Create something good with it. Your father built this for you, but he also built it to help people. Find a way to do that. Create jobs, help families. Build something that matters beyond just making money. I already have an idea, she said quietly. A scholarship fund for children of service workers, cleaners, retail workers, restaurant staff, people like Helen Nico who gave me dignity when I had every reason to feel ashamed. People like Derek who treated me with respect even when I was just another employee. I started crying. That's perfect. Will you help me set it up? Before? I'd love to. We set up the foundation together. The Brooks Family Scholarship Fund. First-year funding, $500,000. 25 full scholarships. Angela insisted on naming it after both me and Robert. I died 6 weeks after our conversation at the coffee shop. Angela was holding my hand. My last words to her were, "I'm so proud of you. You became everything I hoped you'd be." She whispered back, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for teaching me the hard way. It was the only way I would have learned." That was 2.5 years ago. And I'm Angela. My mother died believing I'd changed, and I have. Every single day, I work to prove I deserve the second chance she gave me. I run the real estate portfolio now. All 23 properties. And I've added 6 more. Not for profit, though they are profitable, but because I find buildings in communities that need investment, and I help those communities thrive. The scholarship fund? It's now funded at $2 million annually. We've sent 73 kids to college so far. Kids whose parents work the jobs I used to look down on. Kids who remind me every day why my mother's lesson mattered. I still live at the farmhouse. In my mother's room now. And every morning, I look at her photo and I thank her. For loving me enough to let me fall. For believing I could climb back up. For spending her last year on Earth when she could have been traveling, or resting, or enjoying her wealth, teaching me the lesson that saved my life. She gave me 2 gifts before she died. The first was $43 million. The second was showing me that I didn't need it to be happy. And the second gift? That's the one that actually changed my life. So this is for you, Mom. Everything I do, every choice I make, every person I help, it's all for you. Because you taught me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in character, in integrity, in how you treat people when no one's watching and nothing's in it for you. That's the inheritance you really gave me, and it's worth more than any amount of money. Thank you, Mom, for everything. I love you. And I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. Rest well. You earned it. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that save us. And let me ask you one final question. What's the most valuable lesson someone ever taught you? Was it easy or hard to learn? Tell me your story in the comments below.